Welcome back to Jersey Matters. I'm Larry Menti. Let's continue our conversation about sexual harassment. And also, we need to congratulate our next guest on the big arrest that put a dent in drug trafficking in New Jersey. Prosecutor Camelia Valdes of Passaic County. We'll get to Operation Snow in a moment, but let's start with Operation Sexual Harassment and the conversation we were just having a moment ago. You're in a unique position because you're both an employer and you're a prosecutor, so you know both the civil and the criminal on this. But I wanted to get personal for a second and just ask if you've ever been a victim of sexual harassment.
Oh, absolutely. I've had inappropriate comments made to me as a woman, and a woman in a male-dominated field almost my entire career.
And do you tell them this is inappropriate or I don't like that?
Absolutely. I'm not a wallflower by any stretch of the imagination, as you can imagine, in this role. But it has taken some maturity and some experience on how to deal with that when it happens, because I find it is incumbent upon all of us to teach people how to treat us.
Oh, that's a great point, because my feeling is in some of these things, it is just an accusation or an allegation that is given credence immediately without evidence, and people suffer because of that.
Well, I think from my perspective, from the seat that I sit in as a prosecutor, I have to take every allegation seriously. I have to teach every allegation as if there is a victim involved. But I take a moment to pause to really make sure that I'm investigating what the allegation is, to see whether there's corroboration, and to not be so quick to define who the victim is until I have done, you know, my due diligence to make sure that the allegation is being properly fleshed out.
And it's different as an employer and a prosecutor, isn't it?
Absolutely. In my experience, because I've been a career prosecutor, and it is incumbent upon the organization to treat every allegation seriously. And in the criminal field in particular, because the stakes are so high, someone's liberty, somebody's reputation, someone's freedom is at stake. You have to make sure that you're doing your due diligence and doing your investigation before you levy criminal charges against someone.
But that's much different than just letting someone go because of sexual harassment charges.
But even in the context of letting someone go, and I can only speak from my perspective as a government and a career prosecutor, not as someone who's been in the corporate section or a corporate sector, there are levels to discipline. And there should be levels of discipline in any organization. But you cannot discipline someone unless they know what the expectation is as an employee of that organization. What is the code of conduct? And most organizations, most offices clearly define that for their employees. What is the expectation if this type of situation happens? And then what is the responsibility of the employer? What is the response to you because it's difficult not deal with it? Do you just chalk it up to it's a problem employee, so therefore they cannot be telling us the truth about a certain situation? There's levels to all of it.
You brought this up a couple times now since I've been talking to you. So I think what you're doing is you're training people in that if something happens to you that you don't like or you don't appreciate, the important thing is to set your own boundaries and then also to make note of it.
Right. But the logical extension of that is that you have to feel that if you do say something about it, your employer is going to take you seriously. Your employer is going to pause to see whether there's something that has merit to what you're saying. And then if something has happened to you, that employer is going to take care of it. And you're not then going to be either marginalized in the organization or not believed, or you're going to be deemed as a problem employee or problematic for the organization.
That's a delicate balance, though, isn't it?
But it's a necessary balance.
But because there's some power in accusation then, and if there's an accusation without evidence or corroboration, and people act upon an accusation without evidence, that goes against everything you believe in, right?
It's true, but it's a balance that we must strike. Because if we really want to advocate for victims, they need to feel that we as employers, as prosecutors in particular, we are going to create a space for them where they can come in and they could talk to us. Now, they also have to understand that when you're talking, in my world, it's victims and defendants and witnesses. They also have to understand that the defendant has rights too. And if you tell me something about a defendant, that person has the right to due process. That person has a right to confront their accuser, to ask questions of the victim. So in my world, that balance has to be struck, and it has to be struck every day.
Yeah, there's a concern about where this is all going, but I think everybody agrees, and I think we both could agree that it's a good thing that everything is coming out. Now let's talk about Operation Snow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Tell us what Operation Snow was and how it came about.
Thank you. Operation Snow was a collaboration between the Clifton Police Department, the Passaic County Prosecutor's Office, the Drug Enforcement Administration, and so many of our law enforcement partners in Passaic County. And we launched an investigation into the distribution of cocaine. And it was interesting because after that arrest, people are surprised that people are still doing cocaine. They think that cocaine is a thing of the past, and it is not. I think what has happened, and we've certainly seen it in our county, that people are afraid of heroin and the combination of heroin and fentanyl, which we see, so commonly. So I think people have a false sense that cocaine is somehow an easier drug to do.
Now, in these arrests, and there's been many of them, most of them with opioids and heroin, but you're right, you have one in cocaine. Does that lead you anywhere else? I mean, because sometimes you get people on the low end of the distribution. Mm-hmm. Can that lead you up?
It always has the potential of leading up, because really what you want the goal is to always find the source. Where's it coming from? And yes, we've had arrests where we have focused mostly on buyers, but we want to know who's distributing. Where's it coming from? And that's why the partnerships and the collaborations are so important, because there, again, as I mentioned earlier, there's always levels to what you're working on. And so in this particular case, we knew we were focused on a large-scale operation, but we didn't know how large until we were able to seize 30 kilos of cocaine.
Now, as I wrap this up and say goodbye, I should say that this woman has made several moments of history. You are the first woman prosecutor in Passaic County, the first Latina in New Jersey, and the first prosecutor from Dominican descent in the entire country.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in. It was a pleasure to meet you. Prosecutor Camelia Valdes of Passaic County. When Jersey Matters continues. When we come right back, we continue our conversation about the law and sexual harassment with the Monmouth County prosecutor.